This is our home, a campsite in the wilderness of the Australian bush, where we set ourselves up for a month every year. And again, the commitment of Steve to the research, he took 1 month every year as part of his annual holidays to go up with his family to do research on crocodiles. This was his holiday period to actually go and work on crocodiles. And we'd live here, we'd have a huge team, up to 20 people on the ground, catching the animals. This is my office. Great office, great views, and you can sit away there and actually try to write papers and analyse data. We have a variety of vehicles, and the youngsters in our campsite have fun with that. I'm pleased they didn't put please clean me, and far more appropriate is I love Crocs and have you got Crocs? We're about to. We also have a flotilla of small vessels that allows us to move up and down the rivers, Queensland parks, but Australia Zoo also brings 3 or 4 boats on which we can move easily up and down the river systems. And then we have Steve's research vessel, Croc 1. And this is really important when you're dealing with the technology that we use to have a space which is dust-free and air-conditioned. It really does help. And we'd sit on there and load up our telemetry devices, getting ready to deploy them. It also was designed for research, a huge working deck at the back, and we've had Crocs on the back of Croc 1, which we've been able to move to various locations. We also utilise helicopters, and you'll see that just a bit later in the presentation. Mainly because we're working over vast distances, and helicopters became very useful when we came to translocate or move some crocodiles. So the process begins with being on the river and trying to find out where the animals are, looking for signs of where crocodiles live, so that we can set traps to hopefully capture them. Steve was an expert at this. This would be something that he would do by himself. Survey the river looking for signs. Signs such as claw marks up the bank, and here you can see claw marks on either side here and a slide up onto the riverbank. Or slides like this here where there's a basking platform, where an animal has come up here, crawled up, it's been sitting here, we've come along and disturbed it, and it slid back into the water, and you can actually see the murky water where that animal disappeared. You can get an idea of the size of the animal by the size of the slide or the size of the footprints. And you can start to think about targeting that particular animal. We catch them in a variety of ways. We use water-based traps known as floating traps. These are long traps, camouflaged as you can see here. And there's a draw kind of gate here which shuts down if a croc swims inside and takes the bait. Once they take the bait, they get locked in place there and can sit there quite calmly, waiting for us to come along. The other way of catching animals is using land-based traps, using large nets, such as what's been laid out here. And in this case here, a gate trap, similar kind of mechanism to what we use on floating traps, with a gate at the top here, and the croc can crawl in, and you can see some foot marks there, up into the trap itself. The trap's baited with large pieces of meat, because we're after the largest animals possible. It's placed at the back of the trap, and there's a mechanism which allows that to come up to a small pin at the front here, in which the gate can shut closed. And here we have it all set, ready to go, and there's a little hors d'oeuvre at the front here, as an attractant, and it can come along and hopefully sniff that out and think, there's a bigger piece of food further back in the trap. The animal is captured. This is a bag trap. And then comes the process of removing the animal. And unless you have a highly skilled team, this poses a number of risks. But those risks are minimised when you have expertise and experience that allows you to manage these animals. For the floating traps, we need to move them onto shore. It takes some manpower, move them onto shore. And then it's a process of placing ropes on the top jaw. And a series of ropes, as you can see here, around the top jaw here, which are locked into place. On the bigger animals, you need 3 ropes, and I'll explain why in the next couple of slides. 2 of those ropes are used to pull the animal out and to form a V-type pyramid so that you can actually hold the animal reasonably steady. But I must say that when this animal moves, so do all these people here and all these people here, and you get thrown around. They're pulled out, the animal will sit there, and then the 3rd rope is a very important rope. And Steve typically held on to that rope because that rope is then used to wrap up the jaws. The crocodile will go through its natural death rolls, and you can see here, this rope here is used to wind up the jaws and keep them closed. So they're wound up, nice and tight, and at that stage, the call is given to go for a tackle. And it's essentially what I call a domino tackle. These days we hear about grapple tackles and all sorts of tackles in rugby league. Well, I like to think this is a kind of a domino tackle, and you can see a progression of people coming along, and this shows it quite nicely here. The head is jumped first of all, and then somebody lands on top of you, and somebody lands on top of them, and you literally land on the animal. It perhaps looks a bit bad, actually, but I liken this to a bit of a hug, and our methods are such that we've done this, attached our devices, and then the next day or a couple of days later, we've caught the same animal again. So it can't be too bad to the animal, and perhaps they enjoy that little kind of hug. You hold on tight, and the next stage is securing the jaws. The rope is doing its job at this stage here, but the jaws are also bound up tight, they're fully secured, and then heroically I come in. And the scientist can then do the job. It took me 3 years to graduate to jump the head of a crocodile, and that happened last year. And I don't know what was worse, jumping onto what seems like a piece of cast iron girder, or having the guy behind you who weighs 100 kilograms land on top of you. And that's quite an experience. You end up with a lot of bruises. What I'm going to do is give you a bit of a chronological perspective of our research, and it really started off with our satellite tracking work. This was very much led by Dr. Mark Reed from Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service, and our aim was to really look at the large-scale movements of crocodiles, of male crocodiles, using satellite telemetry. 15 large males were fitted with satellite transmitters. And just to give you an indication of what the system is all about, this remote sensing system, the satellite transmitter on the back of a crocodile sends a signal up to the Argos satellite system. There's about 24 of these roaming the Earth and picking up the location of the animal. That signal, that information is then received back by a base station in France, and then it can be directed or downloaded to our computers here in Australia. And a great way to be able to track animals. These are the devices. We can see here, sausage-shaped. This particular model here gave us information every 4 days. It was switched on every 4 days and then switched off. And so every 4 days we were hopefully able to get a position fix on that particular animal.